How we doing today, guys? Last week I filmed a video where I showed you the wood that I had been storing for years, and you know, the landscaping season has started. I mean, it's I should be out working today, but unfortunately I've got the type of mind where I need to complete one thing before I can move on to the next, and I really wanted to finish kind of cleaning up the backyard, for lack of a better term, before the season started. So we had a really weird winter. It was mild most of the winter. Then 5 or 6 weeks ago it got just cold and it snowed, and then like the last week or two it's been nothing but damp and rainy. And up until 2 days ago the temperature outside would have been, the high would have been in the 40s, and now today we're probably peaking at over 80 degrees, and it's just the weirdest thing. I went for a jog on Sunday. My body's stiff from the jog, and now I have that spring heat, and it feels like I've been out working. Usually in the spring you get the sorest muscles of the year in my line of work, and I feel like I've been out working, and I guess I have on this. The first purpose of this video is I wanted to title this video something like 3 things I'll do differently next time I mill lumber, or 3 common lumber milling mistakes. Maybe we'll go with the more catchy 3 common lumber milling mistakes. And I can't imagine there's too huge a bunch of people that actually mill lumber, but you know, I've been doing this for a few years on and off, and I have been learning. And the first mistake is I never went out and bought anchor seal, which I think is under $30 a gallon. Anchor seal is what you put on the ends of your logs. You put it on the ends of your logs to seal it so you don't get this cracking, because your wood is going to dry quicker on the end of the log. So the anchor seal kind of evens out the drying. And if you take a look at this board, you can see there's some cracks here, but once you get about a foot in, there's no cracks. So the first thing, get some anchor seal. If you're going to mill the board, as soon as you cut the tree down, you know, either seal the ends right away or cut into the lengths you're going to use for milling and seal it right away. But seal the ends, and I'll get some, hopefully sooner than later, I'll get some anchor seal and seal these boards so I can slow it down a bit. And on the same note, and I want to give credit to Out of the Woods Forestry, I'll put a link below. What he does is he has this bucket called a Gamma bucket. You can get it anywhere from like a 1 to 5 gallon bucket, and it's got a screw top lid. And he just puts his anchor seal in the bucket. When he's cutting his trees, he unscrews them, puts it on, and keeps going. And I need to get myself, I'll probably get like a 3 gallon screw top lid bucket, dump a gallon of anchor seal in there, and then when I notice I'm getting low, buy another gallon and just keep refreshing it. So that's the first thing, get anchor seal. The second thing is, you know, watch the pith when you're sawing. So the stuff I've got here, I kind of went through my boards, and I just kept the good stuff. And this pile of firewood over here, which is really dry, these are all boards that I hadn't really watched the pith for. So if you look over here, this would be the pith. I put a few aside to show you guys. Here's the pith. The board is going to crack more. It's going to be more unstable where the pith is. And I've got a lot of wood. You see how nasty this one is? I don't even think that's the pith. But I mean, that's not really a usable board. So we just chopped that up and left it for the firewood pile. But the second thing, try to box your pith in a board or two, and know that those aren't going to be your best boards. And I think as time's gone by, I'm realizing that you get your best boards farther away from the pith than you do closer to the pith. I think that makes sense. So number 2, box your pith out, and also on the same token, most wood, wherever your pith is going to have at least one crack. If you're lucky, it's only going to have one, and it's going to kind of be one way or the other. And try to cut that crack into, again, 1 or 2 boards in the middle, that are not going to be your best boards, and they may, you know, if you ever go to the hardware store, you'll notice that 6x6 timbers always have the pith in the middle, and I think all they're trying to do is just box that pith out because that's where the wood is the weakest. There's some red oak in this pile, and one observation, you know, as much as you're looking at a pile of firewood, I did learn that red oak dries, it cracks more when it dries, as opposed to red maple, which doesn't seem to crack as much. And the cherry I dried barely cracked, and then there was some white pine I had in there too, and that also barely cracked. And then the final thing about milling wood that I have to remember is whatever the final diameter dimension you want for your board, you need to add enough thickness so you can plane it flat. And I think for me, I'm going to end up adding a 1/4 inch to whatever my final dimension of the board should be. And that way, so if I wanted a 1-inch board, I'd cut it at 1.25 inches so that the wood can move a bit. I started watching a channel by a guy named Paul Sellers. If you're a hardcore woodworker, I recommend you take a look at his videos. He's convinced me that I can be a woodworker, and he's convinced me that I can use hand planes, and I'd have to get one and try it, of course, but the reason I kind of organized the wood and kept it neat is because I've been watching this fella Paul Sellers showing how easy it is to sharpen a hand plane and how easy it is to square a board. And I know it's never as easy as it looks in the videos, but this fella Paul Sellers is he's got the trait that I really like to see in people, where he's very humble and he's a master craftsman. There's absolutely no swagger to this guy. He's not wearing dark sunglasses because he wants to look cool. He's just a guy that loves woodworking, and unlike me, he can get to the point quickly. And so I've been watching a lot of stuff by this fella Paul Sellers, and I've been watching him take some boards like this oak board here. He was running a plane on this oak board. I don't know if it wasn't this board, but he's running a plane on some red oak, and between his razor sharp filing, he was just using like a Stanley or a Bailey's. I think it was a number 5 plane. But the sound of that plane cutting across the dry oak was just really something to behold. So I suspect if nobody said, John, I'd love to do something with these boards, I suspect I'll cover these boards up and go ahead and use them as my practice boards when I'm learning how to use a plane and such. But that was the third thing, was, you gotta add your extra width. At some point, I'd like to do some slabs, with the slabs. If you're going for a 1-inch slab, make it 1.25. If you're going for a 2-inch slab, make it 2.25, maybe even more, I don't know. Only time will tell. But as much waste as you're seeing in this pile, and as little wood as you're seeing in this pile, I really have learned things that I will continue to use down the road. And then what you're looking at here is I had that pile I showed you guys last week, and then I had a pile of wood I cut this year, and I just was getting tired of not having room to store it all. So I had a holes housing in this spot last year, and I just went to Lowe's, and I think I'm into this for about $100 now. And if it doesn't work out for a wood storage, I can always just make a shed out of it. It was the first time I ever built a base for a shed. But this is just an 8x8 platform. I didn't even bother to put plywood on it. And this is where I'll dry things, and I'll have to figure something out for a roof on it. But what I'm going to do is go back and get at Lowe's. They make these things called furring strips. So last time I dried my wood, I took these pieces of pine and ripped them down, and it was a pain. So if you go to Lowe's, they sell furring strips, which are 1.5 by 3/4 inch, I think, and they sell them in bundles of 6 or one at a time. But the furring strips for an 8-foot-long furring strip were like $1.10. That's pretty reasonable. So now I have a supply for furring strips as stickers, And then these little blocks, these solid blocks, are like $1.40. So I figure I'll probably get like 10 of these solid blocks and put some stickers on top and then weight down these boards with some solid blocks. And then I need to cover it in a way that's going to allow air to flow through it. And I don't know exactly how yet, but I'll figure that one out. But that's my wood pile. And then, you know, I've got a few of these live edge. This is red maple with some spalting going on. These are a little too thin to use, but a layer or two down, I've got at least one piece that's 1.1 inches thick. And I know my wife would really like a live edge bookshelf. So if I have a spalted maple that I can do something with, maybe after I watch a few more of those Paul Sellers video, I can make my first woodworking project a live edge shelf. So that's just pretty much where we are, guys. I'm just happy I spent all day yesterday building this platform. The day before I got my materials, and then I just spent maybe an hour or two kind of moving the boards around. So I probably got from where I was maybe a day and a half, 2 days into it. And you know, I had the old one covered with some plywood, and I'm done with wet and heavy plywood. It was 3/4 inch. It was ridiculously heavy. It was half rotted. So maybe I'll go to the, you know, Lowe's has corrugated roofing. Maybe I'll see if I can find something in like a brown, a natural color, so it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb, and cover this with. But this is my new wood drying area. And the only other thing I was going to say was, when I do cut lumber, I want to try to be a little more consistent with my thicknesses. You know, I've got 7/8, I've got 1 inch, 1 3/8. So I think I might just start rounding up to 1 inch, 2 inches. You know, I guess it depends what the end result is. Oh, here's that big one. This one's 1 3/8. So I've got a lot of cracking here, but I think I could get at least 1 or 2 shelves out of the middle of that and put a nice live edge on them, leave the live edge on them. My wife might like that for Christmas, although I'm not sure this board is going to be dry enough by Christmas. And then the only other thing is, so I got this huge pile of firewood. I was at Lowe's, and I made a few pieces of cedar fencing. I'll put a picture up here where I just used wet wood, but it was a pain with the handsaw. So I was at Home Depot, and this little Hitachi C10 FCE2, it was $109 for a 10-inch miter saw, and I'd been looking at it for a while, and I like it because it's so lightweight. And yeah, you can only cut a 6-inch wide board, but really nice saw. I tell you, I've never used a miter saw before for wood. I have a metal one, but it just makes life a lot more fun. And so all this wood, you zip through stuff like that like nothing with the miter saw. And I held off for now, but I think I will end up getting. DeWalt makes a miter saw stand. I think it's like $199. And I tried using, I have a roller stand that goes with this, but to try to get your saw and your roller stand at the same angle, you know, I think I'll just get the DeWalt miter saw stand, and then I can always mount another tool to it. I think the miter saw stand is a good investment if I'm going to use this a bit, and I've got plenty of cedar fencing to do, and you know, at some point I'll probably end up buying a sliding compound miter saw for some wider boards, just to bring stuff to a decent dimension. But if anybody needs a 10-inch miter saw, $109 at Lowe's, and I think it's, you know, they're phasing this model out. The new one's got a laser. It's not fancy, but I'll tell you, it cuts the board, you know, and sometimes that's all you need. So that's it for today, guys. Supposed to be a quick video, but I couldn't help talking yet again. But that's what we're holding on to, and we'll hopefully start making some landscaping videos soon. We'll see you around, guys. Bye-bye.